All right, we've arrived at Exhibit C in the case that Charles Darwin is making for species change. Exhibit A was the fossil record. Exhibit B was the geographic distribution of species around the planet's surface. And Exhibit C is going to be comparative anatomy. Darwin's going to be comparing the anatomy of different species to see if it sheds light on species change and the origin of species. For example, take a look at the limbs of various creatures. Here we have the wing of a bird, we have the fin of a whale, the wing of a bat, the arm of a gorilla, the leg of a tortoise, and the limb of T-Rex. And if you took a close look at these, you would notice a pattern in the bone structure of these limbs. There is one bone in the upper limb, two bones in the lower limb, and then digits. One bone, two bones, digits. One bone, two bones, digits. One bone, two, hard to see there, digits. One bone, two bone, digits. One bone, two bone, digits. Incidentally, the wing of the bat is principally structured by the digits of the hand, right? So it's almost like the bat sort of flies with its hands in a way, as opposed to the wing of the bird using its entire limb for flight. But the important point for Darwin here was that there is a common bone structure to the limb. And he's going to argue that the reason why various vertebrates have this bone structure, the one bone, two bones, digits, is because the common ancestor had that type of limb. And that all these different kinds of creatures today, they have inherited that ancestral limb structure from the common ancestor. We could capture that with one of these evolutionary tree diagrams. Here we see the common ancestor of an amphibian, the first vertebrates to have a limb, right? So they were able to colonize land, although they had to stay near water. But the first amphibians then with legs, they were going to give rise to all the other major vertebrates on Earth today. Of course, some amphibians remained amphibians, and some amphibians were going to evolve into reptiles, and some of those early reptiles evolving into mammals and others into birds. But mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians all have this common bone structure in their limbs. And Darwin will argue that they've inherited this ancestral structure, and then natural selection has modified the limbs according to the environmental demands of the species. So it should be noted that in Darwin's time there was an alternate explanation for this theme that we see in these limbs. And that explanation had to do with God having a sort of a blueprint in mind as God created these different species. So, in other words, maybe God had the blueprint of a basic limb in mind with the bone structure, one bone, two bone, digits, and then in the process of designing whales and birds and bats and gorillas and tortoises and T-Rexes, God was sort of manipulating or altering or modifying the basic limb design in order to make these different species unique. So Darwin's going to reject this idea that the theme reflects, the fundamental blueprint in God's mind, in favor of the view that the species today share this limb structure because of common ancestry. The ancestor species had this limb structure, and subsequent vertebrates inherited this limb structure.